Have you ever stopped to wonder how an idea, or a fact, or even just a feeling actually sticks in your mind? I mean, really sticks. Well, it's a pretty fascinating journey of filtering, processing, and storing. And today, we're going to follow that exact path to figure out how your brain truly learns and remembers.
Okay, so to get our heads around this, let's start with a really powerful analogy. Thinking of your mind as a computer. It makes a lot of sense, right? Your senses, everything you see, hear, and touch, they're like the input devices, your keyboard and mouse. Your thoughts, that's your CPU, your central processing unit, doing all the hard work. And your memory, well, that's your storage, kind of like the RAM and the hard drive where everything gets filed away.
So, every single moment, we're just getting flooded with information from the world around us. The whole journey of a memory has to start somewhere, and it begins right here, at the very first gate, our sensory memory. This is the first stop for, well, everything.
But here's the catch. This gate doesn't stay open for long, at all. In fact, it's an incredibly brief stop. Most of that raw sensory data we take in, poof, it's gone in less than half a second. It's like a reception desk with a ridiculously high turnover.
You can actually feel this happening. Seriously, try it with me right now. Close your eyes. Okay, now open them for just a split second and close them again. You see that faint image that's kind of still lingering behind your eyelids? That right there, that's your sensory memory in action. Pretty cool, huh?
So with all that information just vanishing almost instantly, you gotta wonder, how does anything make it through? Well, the secret ingredient is attention. Think of your attention as the bouncer at the club door of your mind. It scans the huge crowd of sensory data and points to one specific thing and says, you can come in.
All right, so what happens once our bouncer, attention, has granted access? That piece of information arrives at what we can call the mind's active workbench. This is your short-term memory. It's the space where you consciously, actively work with information.
But, and this is a big but, this workbench has a pretty limited amount of space. Famous research shows that it can hold about 5 to 9 things at once, with 7 being that kind of magic number for most people. And it's not about how big the items are, it's the number of them.
Let's give this a shot. Look at this phone number on the screen. For the next few seconds, just repeat it in your head. Focus on holding it right there in your mind. 555-0182. You got it? Okay.
Okay, now, real quick, what color is the shirt you're wearing? Go on, look down. Think about it for a second. Now, that simple little question, it's a distraction. It forced a new piece of information onto your mental workbench.
And now, back to the number. Do you still have it? If you've already forgotten it, don't worry, you are not alone. This is a perfect example of just how fragile our short-term memory is. That new information about your shirt came in and just shoved the phone number right off the workbench.
So for anything to be truly learned, to actually stick, it can't just hang out on that temporary workbench. It has to be encoded and filed away into the mind's vast, seemingly infinite library, our long-term memory.
And this library is incredibly well organized. It's not just some giant pile of books. No, we have different sections. There's semantic memory. That's for your general facts, like knowing Paris is the capital of France. Then there's episodic memory, which stores your personal stories, like remembering your first day of school. And finally, procedural memory, which is all about skills, the how-to knowledge, like riding a bike.
Okay, but this brings up a really interesting question, right? If this long-term library is so massive and so well organized, why on earth do we forget things? Why do we sometimes struggle to find a book that we know is in there somewhere?
And here's the crucial insight. Forgetting is usually a retrieval problem, not a storage problem. The memory isn't actually gone forever, it's just temporarily misplaced. It's like we've lost the card catalog entry that tells us which shelf to look on. The book is still there, we just can't find it.
So what's one of the biggest reasons for this retrieval failure? It's something called interference. This is when memories just get all jumbled up with each other. Proactive interference is when old info blocks new info, like when your old password makes it impossible to remember the new one. And retroactive is the opposite. New info makes it hard to recall the old, kind of like when learning French this year starts to push out the Spanish you learned last year.
But here is the really empowering part. We are not just helpless victims of forgetting. We can actively become better librarians of our own minds. There are real, concrete strategies we can use to strengthen those pathways and make our memories easier to find.
You know, it really all comes down to active engagement.
So instead of just passively reading something, quiz yourself on it. Actively try to answer questions. Instead of just highlighting a passage, take notes in your own words. That forces your brain to process it differently. And try this. Create vivid mental pictures. When you connect an idea to a strong image, you build a much stronger, more easily retrievable memory. So as we wrap this up, the big takeaway is this. Learning isn't some kind of magic, it's a process. And by understanding the journey a memory takes, from your senses all the way to long-term storage, you actually gain the power to consciously guide it. So the real question is, what new information will you choose to store in your library today?